Hi, hello. This is the Barbara Cox Show. I'm so excited today. Guess we're going to hear that again. Get it, girl. Get it, girl. Praise God. I'm so excited. This is the Barbara Cox Show. I'm excited. This is my new intro. Praise God. Praise God. I'm excited about what he does through me as he gave me the intro for this show. And I'm excited about you as well and how God utilizes his people to do the things that he has us to do. Just want to come on to talk about a very important message that God gave me. And I'm grateful to God for speaking through me and allowing me to come on and do my podcast as well as do a live, Facebook Live along with my podcast. God just showed me how that would be very, very beneficial. So people that are listening to the podcast will get a chance to actually hear the message, but I also have it going out on my page, the Barbara Cox page on the Facebook page as well. Today's question, God always deals with me in questions. And today's question is, can you get better? Better. Can you get better if you are bitter? Can you get better if you are bitter? And I want you to look at the book of Philippians 4:8. The book of Philippians 4:8 reads, "Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things." Think on these things. True, honest, just, and pure. Think on these things. And whatsoever things are of good report, think on these things. So today's question, can you get better if you are bitter? Can you get better if you're bitter? So once again, just imagine eating a lemon. I always put lemon in my water. It kind of helps. It goes into the water, and it when I drink the water, it helps me. It burns the calories. So when I'm drinking a lot of water and I add the lemon, it helps to burn the calories. But just think if I took a piece of that lemon and just kind of suck on it, begin to just kind of eat it and see how it's the most bitter taste to it. And then look at myself in the mirror while I'm sucking on that lemon and I get a chance to see my expression because of the bitter lemon. It's very, very bitter. And then I have this frown all on my face because that explains how bitter it is, because it's not a pleasant look. It's an unpleasant look on my face because the lemon is bitter. And that's how it is with our lives when we taste of the bitterness that's in our heart. Then we walk around, we indicate the look on our face, what's actually happening in our heart. If we're bitter, it will show on our face. It will show in the things that we say. And it can affect our entire life. And the question today is, can we get better if we are bitter? So what does it mean to be bitter? When there's bitterness, there's a resentment, there's anger, there's frustration, and there's hatefulness. That's normally the characteristics of a person that is bitter. So um, you begin to utilize an energy that it takes all your energy. It saps out your energy. It evaporates all your energy when you're bitter. Because you don't know if you heard the saying that you use more muscles to frown than you do to smile. It's less muscles when you smile, but it takes more to frown. And as I said earlier, when you have that lemon, it's so bitter, so you're frowning. And so think about a person that's always bitter, then you always have this look on your face that is unpleasant. So you have an unpleasant life. And so then it shows in the things, the accomplishment, the things that you're trying to accomplish in life. A lot of times you utilize so much energy just trying to just make it through the day without trying not to show what's really in your heart, but it eventually will show. If there's bitterness in your heart, it's going to eventually show up on your face. It's like I can suck on that lemon and there's no way. There's going to be a frown because it's a bitterness there. And so that's how it is in your life. If there's bitterness in your heart, it's going to show up in your face. It's going to show up in your talk. It's going to show up in your walk. It's going to show up in the way you utilize any aspect of your life, at work, at home, wherever. People will know that there's a bitterness there. They'll know that there's some bitterness in your heart. It's kind of hard to hide the bitterness. It's just like trying to suck on that lemon and not actually show what you really feel inside. So today's question, can you get better? Can you get better if you're bitter? So can you get better if you are bitter? So if you're bitter, can you get better? So believe it or not, I'm going to tell a little bit of my testimony, and this is going to be a shocker to a lot of people because a lot of people do not know this because there were years before I even told my own mother. I was a young teen. I'll say teen. I was 16 years old. And I always walked around feeling bitter. I thought that I was nobody. I felt that everybody was against me. Why? Why did I feel so bitter? Because that's the question that you have to ask yourself when you feel bitter. You have to find out what is it that's causing you to feel bitter. And then you have to address that issue. What is it? And so my mom knew that there was a change in me. She knew something had happened to me. And she knew that there was a change in my attitude and everything, because it's like I went into a shell and I just went into a dark place, like I clammed into a cave, and I stayed there in that cave, and I just walked around my life feeling like a nobody, feeling so bitter. I was so bitter because at age 16 I was raped. Like I said, it was a long time. It was about 5 years before I even told my mother. But I was 16 years old and I was raped. And I had lost all my sense of belonging, just feeling like I was somebody at that time, because I lost the most important thing that a woman wants to maintain at age 16 was my virginity. It was taken from me, and I felt like it was more than just my virginity. It was my dignity that was stripped away from me. So because, like I said, because my mom never knew, she knew that there was something wrong. A mother knows, but she just didn't know what it was. She knew that there was something about her baby. I was her baby, or one of the babies, that was different, because she told me years later that she knew something had happened. And I even developed this distrust relationship with anybody that I was close to, especially if it was a male. I lost that connection. And I thought it was something that I did wrong, which is normal for a person that's been raped. And so I walked around with this bitterness in my heart. And I had this unforgiveness in my heart because I was taken advantage of, and I felt like no one cared. And it wasn't their fault because they didn't know. I didn't tell anyone. But I finally started crying out to God, and I began to talk to God because I didn't want to be bitter. I didn't want to walk around angry at the world. I didn't. I did. Honestly, I did not. I wish that the night could have rewind and I could have done something, or somebody could have helped me to make sure that night did not occur, but it did. And all I can remember was just crying out to God at some point in my life and saying, God, I don't want to be angry anymore. I don't want to be this bitter teenager anymore. I want to live. I want to be a joyful young lady. All I remember is God saying that I was free, that I didn't have to hold that pain, and that I could tell somebody. I just didn't want it to carry it anymore. So there was a few of my sisters that I started telling. Because, guys, I have 9 sisters. It's a lot of us, but we're all so close. I have 9 sisters, and I have 6 brothers. And I didn't tell anyone for a long time. But I began to slowly tell my sisters. And I have sisters that we're close in age. So I began to tell them, and hoping that they would keep my secret, because it was still a secret to me, because I felt nasty. I'm serious. I felt like it was the most terrible thing that anybody should tell. You can't tell that. So I began to tell my sisters. And then I no longer was bitter, because I felt that I not only that God set me free, but then when I began to tell others, I began to feel like it was okay. I was going to be okay. And so I no longer felt the weight of the world on me. And I no longer felt this chip on my shoulder. Because sometimes I felt like, man, I don't know if I should say chip on my shoulder. Because sometimes when you got chip on your shoulder, it's like you feel like the world owes you something. But it wasn't like that. I did feel like something should have been done differently. But how could somebody do something when I didn't tell? I didn't. Honestly, I did not tell. And then but I no longer felt like this woman that was staring in this mirror at me that was so ugly. This woman was so ugly because this happened to her. That made her ugly. And see, and I no longer thought at that point, once I began to talk about it, I began to share it with my siblings. I no longer felt humiliated. I no longer felt ugly. I no longer thought of myself as this person that had done something wrong. I felt like it was something that I should have done to stop it, but it was out of my power, it was out of my control. And I no longer thought that I was less than this beautiful butterfly that could now come out of the cocoon. Because when I went into the cave, that's what eventually happened. I went into like a stage of the butterfly crawling into the cocoon. And then God said I was free. He said I was set free. So then once I come out of the cocoon, I could stretch my wings again. I could be this beautiful, bubbly